Welcome to Modern Goddess. Here we discuss everything mastering your mindset, wellness wisdom, upgrading your relationships so that you can unleash your divine goddess essence and live your authentic best self every single day. I'm your host, Cassie Aurora. I'm just going to put it out there. I think I recorded this whole podcast by saying Jupiter going direct. Okay, what I mean is Jupiter going visible. So if I say Jupiter going direct, I mean visible. Yeah, so I'm just going to preface it there. Guys, I don't know about you, but Mercury doesn't go retrograde for ages, but I feel like my life is just one whole big Mercury retrograde. So, apologies for that. Enjoy the episode. I would love your feedback, of course. This week we have some really, really, really good episodes for you coming. So, make sure you subscribe and follow. And just something that I ask people to do, if you can, so that more people can access this podcast, is to leave a rating and review. You can do that if you're listening on iTunes, and just share with someone if you feel like they might enjoy this podcast. So, enjoy the episode. So, good morning. Welcome back. If you're listening to this the day that it airs, then it's a great day because Jupiter has just gone direct. Venus has entered Pisces, and in the scheme of current things and current planetary energies, boy oh boy do we need it. So the good news is there's going to be some light relief. I mean, if anyone caught my blog post last week on why we are incarnating now, if you haven't, go and check it out. It's such a good blog post, and it talks about, in shamanic astrological kind of culture, there's a belief that we're coming to the end of a 26,000 year cycle. A lot of people are calling this the blackout. And we're entering now into the golden age, so a new cycle, where basically Source itself is reinventing and recreating and re-establishing structures and foundations. And obviously humanity are part of Source, so we are also going through this change. And this is why for so many people who I've coached this week, who have sat down for Reiki or healing treatments, or my astrology clients, every single person has said that there has been just such intense feelings. Often, the thing I'm seeing is the whole last year has been about all of their life changing. And this isn't for everyone, but it's for quite a significant number. Whether it, depending where it's happening in their chart, all the eclipses and the Pluto-Saturn energy, it's kind of been all these changes. But now they're getting the final whip of the dragon's tail, which is going to happen really for the next 6 months, where are kind of experiencing a resurfacing of old emotions, stuff they even thought they dealt with. And this isn't just them. You guys know that I had a huge relapse of my eating disorder over Christmas, which literally felt like I was 7 years behind in terms of my actual growth path. It felt different when I was there, but I was still playing it out. And now I see it in context because it's actually put me on an even more committed path to my health. Speaking with Vivian from Viva Natural Health last week, who came on the podcast, really opened up to my eyes the subtle things that have been changing my body, perhaps weren't normal, even though I was kind of in the process of trusting my body there's this fine line between trusting it and then not being as authoritative with it. And I think there's that fine line that we all have to tread. And I actually went and returned to tracking, which tracking my food is like a really old thing I used to do when I was competing and like in gym competitions, like for the body physique and the fitness, and like was really into that, and I was super ripped and whatever. And I used to track, and then I like totally stopped when I recovered from anorexia. And whenever I would relapse, I would track again. But I was really using it to check how little I was eating. Whereas this time I was tracking and I was like, shit, okay. Like I realised that because I'm vegan, which I'm going to talk about in today's podcast, because this is a thing that is... it's big. I don't actually know how much memory I've got on my phone, so this podcast could end quite imminently and you'll just get a 10-minute thing. But anyway, so I was like tracking, which is an old thing, but actually it was one of the best things I could have done, because it was kind of like using an old structure, taking what actually had worked in the past, which is very Saturn Pluto, and actually applying it to a new context. But that was something that is relevant now, but it's without all the pain and trauma and things associated to it. And I know that's a really simple way of seeing it, because for other people it's like big, it's in relationships, and for me it's in relationships. But I really worked through that this year, and if we're really honest, relationships are constant triggers for self-growth. That's literally the mystery school of Libra, which we all have somewhere in our chart, you know, relationship and learning about the self through self and other. And anyone with 7 house placements in their chart, which is the house of relationships, is definitely has something going on in that mystery school that they need to address in this life and constantly experience. I'm in that camp. So anyway, this is what happens when I do a podcast. I'm like, go all over the weekend. So the good news is that in amidst all this and this heavy energy, whatever you're struggling with, you know, I've actually started, you know, I put a discount on my astrology readings because I want people to be able to access them, because like this stuff is therapy. Like my astrology is like a therapy session, because we're looking at the planetary archetypes, we're embodying them, we're experiencing them now in our life. You know, there is no difference between us and what's happening in the planets. Just because it feels a physical space, there's actually not. We're all the same non-Hertzian quantum field underneath it all. We're all completely the same energy. So the planets are actively giving us a reflection of humanity. And so this is why I've got so much pride and faith in my astrology reading, because it really addresses those real human things. It's not just like esoteric, this, that, the other. It's like, okay, this is hard. You've elected into this, and right now the best thing you can do is XYZ, and the best prayers and mantras you can do are this. The best actual diet for you right now, based on where you are, would be something like this. And I'm trained in like a basic level of nutrition. I'm not a nutritional therapy practitioner, but I can see in the chart where there's too much heat, or I can see, you know, and I will often, when I'm reading, I'm connecting to a source, and I'm often connecting with spirit these days, and spirit will give me a lot of insight. I had a really, really lovely girl the other day who had a reading, and it was like the whole time spirit was just shouting in my ear that she shouldn't be eating sweet potatoes. I don't know why. And she's like, oh yeah, that's really true. But it was just silly things like that. But also looking at her chart, I could see that she needed to have cooling and etc. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, when we're in a place and we're in a way, it's okay to like seek certain therapies. And like I have myself paid other astrologers this month and paid a medium this month, because even though my soul tells me what direction, it's always nice to have someone affirm, actually this is right for you where you are, and you're not crazy. This is how you can move forward. And so with Jupiter going direct, it's like things are going to change. And what Jupiter does, it brings opportunities. Jupiter is like our cheerleader, but depending where it is in your chart and how, whether you're a night birth, a day birth, what you're, where it's falling and what house, what are the transits you have going on, because like Jupiter's going direct for me in my second house of finance, and I'm like, woo, opportunities to get money. But on the same account, I've got Saturn return happening, second house of finance, third house of transport and travels, and I've just had my car break and I have to pay like literally £800 to get it fixed. So, potato, but Jupiter might come along and balance out the scales. But for other people, there might be nothing else like that going on in their chart. I know someone really close to me, and I knew that they would get this inheritance when Jupiter went direct. They had, sadly, a loved one passed away. But there was some inheritance for them, and I absolutely knew that when Jupiter went direct, I was like, the day that happens, that money's coming. And with Venus in Pisces, it's probably an exaggerated form of what actually he thought it might be, and it will be an even better thing, because Venus for him is in a special place in his chart, and how it was working for him. And I just knew. And then, of course, it's arrived, his inheritance, and it's a lot more than he thinks. And it's like, see? So, and this is happening to my friends in all different ways. For some, it's realising the choices they've made are, in this whole energy, they're like, oh, crap, this still isn't the right choice. That's what it is for me. I'm still like, what? Where am I supposed to be? And with Venus in Pisces and Jupiter going direct, we'll start to see in a real way, okay, here's an opportunity. For me, like, I haven't seen any of you in January. Like, I don't know where you've been. I've had lots of lovely clients the last week, but there's not been much action going on. And I know that when Jupiter moves forward, work will start moving again, as it will for everyone. So the one of my pieces of advice is, if you're on the fence about booking an astrology reading, I totally understand, because I'm like on the fence about doing most things in life. When there's a sale on now, so take advantage and book in, because if you have a specific question, you'll feel really, really much better afterwards. And also you can, I have a Modern Goddess online coaching program. I actually launched it in January, but we only had, there's literally like a couple of people jump in. I knew it was the time of year. So I'm going to still advertise that. I'm going to really advertise it again in February. I'm going to open up the course. And it's a course that's designed for women, basically, who feel like they're playing small in their life. They feel like they want to start embracing their inner feminine wild goddess, but they don't know how. They feel like there's something more they're supposed to do or be. They kind of feel like they're living a half life for everyone else. It kind of returns you to that, and it examines all the pathologies that take us to being, out of coherence with our true self. I post in there like different archetypal goddesses we can work with. They correlate to planets, and starting in February, of course, we'll have our coaching calls, and that's where we all get together, and I want to do little full moon ceremonies. So it's like a really nice forum of beautiful women all raising each other up really to follow their dreams. And in there, I'm promoting obviously all of the basics of life, because you can be as spiritual as you like, but if you're have a house full of toxins and you're drinking tap water and all these things that we do, how can we start to integrate new, more positive energetic currency into our body? And that's like the energetic food we take in. I'm not telling you how to eat. I'm telling you the skills that will help you understand what your body needs, and some of the people you might wish to access to help you on that path, like practitioners in that field. We look at, the relationships, that's your energetic currency. Your sleep, that's another currency. Meditation, mindfulness, mindset, they're all currencies. So we look at that. But we do look at all the sexual releasing exercises as well. So if you have any blockages around sex and shame, we kind of address that with some exercises. And it's like a broad 4-week course. and there's 4 like modules, and then you can kind of like jump in and out as you want. Like for many people, like the first time round it fell at a weird time of year, so they're kind of starting it again this time round, and it's fine. It's like really super chill, but I really am excited about the community that we are building, and it's all to do with really embracing who you are authentically, without all the layers, without all the labels, and how can that exist in today's society, because that's a really difficult question, and that's something, it's very Virgo, it's a real Virgo archetype actually. How can we serve in the most natural, authentic way, but how does that actually fit and form into society? So it's quite an interesting concept, and I absolutely love this group of women, and I would love as many women who feel called to be part of that. So I'm going to open that up. I will open it up now, but we'll really launch with it. It's kind of like the middle of Feb, so just after Valentine's Day. So you might want to jump on that now. Good morning. So you might want to jump on that now. Just head to my website, and you'll see Modern Goddess course on there. You'll also see my astrology readings, and you'll also see my Reiki 1 course that I'm doing this weekend. So very exciting, very fun things happening this month. I have Christina coming on the podcast later this week, so Christina Rice is coming on. So yeah, Jupiter moves direct and everything's happening. And what does it mean for all of us? Well, Venus in Pisces and Jupiter direct. What I want to say is return to the Jupiter, the Jupiter episode on the podcast. Not sure what episode it is. It was done in December, so scroll down. It's hard to miss. I don't have like millions of episodes, but it's, it's the Jupiter in Capricorn. It's great. So return to that, because all of those things that apply will really start to manifest now. Jupiter has been invisible, and so that kind of means it's more of an internal thing. We can't see it in the sky, but as it moves direct, we really, really can start to see it. And this is when its influence becomes more powerful. It's really happening today. And it means that opportunities and, perhaps blessings for some people, depending on your luckiness. I'm not particularly a lucky person, I wouldn't say. But other people are lucky. And so how Jupiter will function for one will not be for another. So keep your eyes peeled. It's very subtle for me. It actually comes in the form of loads of doors of opportunity opening, but because I still have Saturn literally ruling every Navamsha, every part of my chart, it just seems to be my it's just like the old granddad of my chart that just makes me work hard for everything. And I hate to use the expression work hard, because I genuinely believe it's quite a yang expression and it has definitely some connotations, but it's literally how it is for me. So it's interesting. So when you have Jupiter move direct, look where it is in your chart. You can go on astro.com. It's very simple, and then you'll see this circular chart, and if it means nothing, you can go to my astrology classroom section on my website, and that's where you can see how to actually work it out. And then you can kind of listen to my episode, knowing where it falls in your chart, and look at both whole sign and Placidus, because for me it's you'll see, and they're just different systems of the houses. And if this all is going over your head, just stick to my astrology classroom, and just follow the pizza slices, which will make sense when you're there. So refer back to the episode. Now I want to talk about Venus in Pisces a little bit. So Venus is love, money, romance, beauty. It's attraction. It's also legacy. It generally represents relationships. So it represents, how we are observing and things like that. I really feel like it's how we observe things, like listen and observe. And so It's also what we look out for as beauty in others. Depending where it is in your chart, it, depends how it functions. But collectively, Venus is moving into Pisces. And this is a wonderful, wonderful energy. And like I say, it's quite funny because this person who inherited more than they thought, Venus had moved into their 5th house. And the 5th house is a very lucky house. And it's exaggeration, it dissolves boundaries. So it's exalted there. Venus is exalted, which means it's the happiest place for it to be in Pisces, which is useful to know because that's where it is. And so what can we expect? Well, think about whirlwind romance. It's that kind of feeling, especially as Uranus has moved direct and the sun is in Aquarius. It's very much that energy of right place, right time. We do have planets in Earth, but it means for example, more likely that karmic relationships will come back to the surface. That's what it feels like to me when I see Venus in Pisces. And even when I think about that, I'm thinking, sorry, this dog this man was really close and he was just looking at me like it's mental. Okay, so Venus in Pisces. Guys, this is why I shouldn't podcast in the park anymore. There's too many cute dogs. It's exalted, and it means when it comes to love, things are, of course, being exaggerated. We feel in that romance. It is making a square with Mars, so we need to be mindful of that energy. There can be fiery conflicts that just come out of nowhere, and they sort of just, it's where has that come from? But by the end of the week, that will definitely clear up. So a great time for partnerships and love and couples, if it's falling in that way in your chart, especially at the end of the week, because the whole time that Venus is exalted in Pisces. Also, for some, financially it's good because Venus is gifts. And what I've told a lot of the women to do in my Modern Goddess program is actually pray to Venus, because Venus obviously, rules women, the archetype of that. But Venus archetypally has a long legacy, and I'm not going to go deep into Venus right now, but she gives. She is a gift giver. She kind of is hidden from the sun. She likes to be away from the sun, who is king and tells her not to do things, and give generously. So I always pray to Venus because Venus gives you things. Now, she does, trust me. I've used her a lot in my love spells. It's not just cliche. But what you have to do with Venus is, while she's exalted in Pisces, is ask for very specific dates and times, because, they're not thinking on our timeline. They'll bring it you 3 lifetimes down the line. Venus might bring you things. So you can take today to do a prayer to Venus and Jupiter. Astrologically, it's a great time. Light a candle at the hour of Venus. If you don't know when that is, don't worry. You could even do it Friday. That's the day of Venus. And you can just send her a prayer and ask for what you want. And, if it's a baby, if it's financial abundance, I'm not joking. This shit works. Something I'm using now in my Reiki treatments, in my healing distance treatments, is planetary energies. It was something I was given by... I don't talk a lot on the podcast about my weird spiritual stuff. I know my podcast is pretty spiritual with astrology, but it gets weirder, trust me. But I had this download from one of my guides who is a shaman. And I identify as more a shamanic astrologer really these days, because it's the only thing that really makes sense to me. And he gave me this whole healing system as I was treating a client. So I just followed it, and it was really insane. It was so crazy. So I'm actually using, I don't even know what to call it. I looked on Google, this thing doesn't exist, planetary Reiki. And then I was well, it's really astral magic. in my book, but it's planetary Reiki, and no one's doing it, at least not to my knowledge, because, you know, Google tells me all. So yeah, and what we can do is we can bring in these archetypal energies. You know, archetypes are literally these kind of concepts that we all understand because they exist in the mass unconsciousness. But the problem is, an archetype is beyond words. And so when I say to another person who has worked with Venus energy or Jupiter energy, I say Jupiter, they understand it. But even as astrologers, there's more we can understand about these energies, because they're concepts that we embody and then try and bring into human form, and that's quite difficult. And so when I'm doing like a planetary Reiki treatment, I'm bringing in the different elements. You know, this one lady, she was not lazy, but she felt lazy. She felt a bit, ooh, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, trust the process. But if someone says they want to feel revitalized, you know, and she doesn't have a strong Mars in her chart, she's got a lot of water energy. I brought in the archetype of Mars, and I brought it in a very Capricornian way. So it was, you know, it wasn't like cutting like Mars in Aries or Scorpio. And I literally just brought it into her body. And so what you can do is ask the archetype of Venus and Jupiter to make themselves known in your life through blessings. Say like this month, and just watch what happens. I know I sound batshit crazy. I am batshit crazy, so it's fine. And I am actually working with Saturn at the moment, because I have my Saturn return. And the more I try and hide from it and bury my head in my little Scorpio ocean of water that I love to do, because I like working hard and I really like the pursuit of knowledge and truth. But there's been my food and my nutrition, which has been my one last Achilles heel of all my, you know, if you'd have met me 5-6 years ago, well, no, maybe 7-8 years ago, I was like totally lost. I was just an absolute, you know, just complete, like inauthentic, just even like 2-3 years ago, I think, just really lost, really, really lost, not in my essence at all. And so, but my eating disorder is like the very last thing of that. And of course, I've come on leaps and bounds, like my respect for my body has moved on. I am in a place where I'm actually really seeing the beauty of my body, and I don't like it to be smaller or thinner. And I've actually realised that, and the actual anorexia is about taking up space. It's really interesting, and I don't want to go back into that, but I have actually used the archetype of Saturn. I said, look, okay, I've got my Saturn return. Show me the ways through ideas where I can embody your energy. But also, I'm going to play with Jupiter and Venus, because I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, but Saturn and Venus are friends. Saturn and Jupiter can coexist together because they actually get stuff done. It's just that we have to harness them in the right way. So it's really interesting what we can do with these planetary energies. Remember, they're archetypes. So the same way in which my goddesses in the Modern Goddess course will say, I'm working with Freya this week, or I'm working with Tara. I'm like, yeah, amazing. It's the same with the planets. So if you say, I don't understand astrology, I want to, I'm interested, ask Mars to make itself known in your life. You'll know. Or you can say, be careful when you ask Mars to show up. You could ask Pluto. If you ask Pluto, Pluto to me is very similar to the Kali energy. I invited Kali into my life last year. I just went, you know what, bring it, because I just, you know, worst year of my life, best year of my life. And that's what Kali does. That's what Pluto does. Pluto is not subtle. It can be subtle. It's very subtle. And then it comes in and it's like, crash, because you didn't listen. And that's one of the really difficult things about people with Scorpio ascendants. You know, the intensity of which they feel when your Pluto is strong or your Scorpio ascendant is, it's you know, especially if you have some kind of Pluto moon opposition, Pluto Mars opposition, like I have this. I have actually a friend I met who has this. It's rough. So, you know, there's there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do to draw in these archetypes and actually see how they play out in your life. And especially with Jupiter going direct, I just think it's a really great time to start exploring those wisdom traditions. Jupiter represents wisdom traditions. Venus is in Pisces. Pisces is it's spirituality, it's occult not so much. It's kind of like dissolving the boundaries between human and source, dissolving all boundaries, coming completely into spirituality. And so this is a great time to go to cacao ceremonies, do loads of Kundalini yoga, meditation, tantra, which is not too Pisces, but we've got Pluto strongly featuring, so tantra is like a nice way we can release. Just getting really going with groups of people and connecting on a spiritual level, things like kirtan or mantra, singing, ecstatic dance. This is the time for it. If I'd have planned a retreat, I would have absolutely done it for this month. What an amazing month. Turns out next week I'm going to a retreat to just be there for a few days in the mountains, with my new boyfriend, so I'm really excited about that, and it will be an amazing week to travel. So there's all these incredible things that we have to look for. Now, this is not to negate the deep energy that's happening on a collective unconscious level and in our physical bodies, where people are quite literally feeling that crisis energy. So it's going to feel weird because you're going to have the sun in Aquarius, like whoa, making activating Uranus wherever that is in your chart, and the house of Aquarius, and that's like a forward moving, want to break free, want to move, that's the energy of Aquarius. It just feels electric, and then we have this dense Pluto Saturn energy, like literally like a big cow pat on everything, which is like, look at your stuff. And the best thing we can do there is really surrender and let go. But then we have Venus in Pisces going, it's all lovely and wonderful. And you know what? It's fine. Let's escape into it. Watch out for that Mars square. That is something that's going to feature. And all that means is there's tension coming from Mars in Sagittarius. Of course, it might just come in the form of like explosive arguments with a partner that just blow over. And they will blow over because it's Sagittarius and Pisces. So it's like, what are we even fighting about? But it could be that, some sort of, it all depends where it falls in your chart. And this is why I always strongly advocate go to my astrology classroom, because then you can say, oh, Mars is in my second house. No, Mars is in my first house now, and it's squaring Pisces in Venus in Pisces in my fourth house. So this is going to feel like some kind of maybe tension between how I feel and what I want to do, and my family being, coddling or trying to bring me opportunity, and me wanting to do it on my own. That's like an example. And so because then what the first house and the fourth house mean vaguely, you can start to kind of get a sense of the areas of life to observe it happening. And then that's the difference between living astrology and simply just knowing it in your mind. And I know so many astrologers that literally know about astrology in the mind, but the way they explain it doesn't make sense to me, because I'm really earthy. So I'm like, whatever you're saying is so abstract, it just doesn't make sense. Whereas living astrology, I'm like, oh, this is how it could play out, and this is how the archetype looks, and it's likely that right now this is what you're experiencing on a real level. And I'm usually somewhere on the nail. It's very rare that I'm off, and I'll say, okay, so based on this energy, there's ways we can move forward. And I know how it feels in my body, and for them, they'll know how it feels for them. And we want to bring in, how can we move the energy? We don't want to get rid of it, because, it's there to stir up things in the body. Because thinking astrology is like triggering, like anything. And it triggers all these fragments of you which are in the unconscious, which are ready to come forward and be healed. And that's really the mystery school of astrology, mystery schools of the different parts of the zodiac. We're all in a different mystery school depending on our ascendant, and that's what astrology addresses. So it's interesting for sure. And so this is why, just go on there and check out my astrology classroom. Okay, so hopefully you enjoy this time with Venus in Pisces. If you haven't already, check out my latest blog posts. They're really great. And, take advantage of my readings, because they're on a discount now, because I want people to be able to access them. It's an interesting time. It's a dynamic time. Things are changing. 2020 is the real year of change and re-establishing everything new. And to me, it's very exciting. And also, if you are interested in the Modern Goddess course, you can absolutely join us for that. I would love to have you in the group. And just stay in a place of witnessing everything, because right now so much is changing and you'll have so many things coming up and different energies dispersed. Stay at the helm. So come back into that first house, instinctual self, the helm of the chart as we know it in astrology, and witness everything happening on your ship and choose wisely. And if you're not sure, don't make a choice. The things that are meant to be will stay, and I'm not advising you, but the slower you are, the more you'll know the right choice for you. When we come from the head, sometimes it isn't always the right choice. Sometimes it can be. So have a great week, and I look forward to sharing the podcast with Christina Rice with you soon. Take care and enjoy.